practice, pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody's south of Capitol Hill's rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and plan to getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me? I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
That Dre season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that, hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my own flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on to the hearse. Party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete. I'm a verbal athlete, deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building, my whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom just 'cause I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like suns and like moons, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just 'cause I laugh. As if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatefulness. But just like life, I'll rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh, does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, naturally, there I go rising.
Welcome, everybody, to the Morning Update Show. It's definitely time to rise. Happy Wednesday to all of you out there. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday. And you guys know we do this as a pair. My guy, Big O. What up, Big O?
Good morning, Trey Holiday.
Good morning.
Still we rise.
Still we rise, brother.
And just to be clear, racism won't win.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
All the way. Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to the Morning Update Show. And before I tell everybody to tag and share the stream, wanted to say thank you. Well, we've got outpouring of support from all around the world. And this is where I wanted to bring this point up right here. I didn't realize our viewership was like so all over. I mean, not only the Northwest here, big shout out to our people down there in Portland, Oregon, over Eastern Washington, up north in Bellingham and in between, throughout the Intermountain West, Anchorage, California, Texas, Florida, then Australia. People hitting us from Germany, Turkey, the UK, across the continent of Africa. So I want to say thank you, big shout out to our viewership well beyond right here in Seattle, Washington. Yeah. And thank you for joining us. This is the perfect opportunity right now to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and tag and share the stream with people that you feel can appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, honestly, to see that outpouring of support. So many people, there for us. And thank you again. Thank you from me, from the team. It's much love, much appreciated.
I think one thing as well, like in a lot of conversations after yesterday's show, is it ain't just us carrying this, but it's a collective burden. And, I think it is good that we're able to talk about these things. A lot of people's mind, and something that we'll talk about a little later in the show, is that Mike Davis from the South Seattle Emerald, he had wrote an article yesterday basically saying the same thing. It's like this impact of trauma that we collectively carry around. And, and it's amazing, to be honest with you, when you really feel the burden of it, it's amazing that we're able to function. What I'm saying? As a people.
Yeah. Still getting a lot of things done through the midst of it all, man. Like Maya just said right there, still we rise.
All right. So we're going to continue to rise through it. Starting off in the national headlines, as usual right now, as the Derek Chauvin trial continues. Here's an update right here from CBS this morning.
About 10 miles south of Brooklyn Center, Derek Chauvin's defense attorneys are working to counter dozens of prosecution witnesses who blame him for the death of George Floyd. Jamie Yukas is following the trial in Minneapolis.
Any resistor, handcuffed or not, should go to the ground into a prone control position.
The defense's use of force expert Barry Broad said Chauvin was justified when he handcuffed George Floyd face down on the pavement.
Police officers don't have to fight fair. They're allowed to overcome your resistance by going up a level.
The prosecution questioned Broad's judgment on cross-examination.
What part of this is not compliant?
So I see his arm position in the picture that's posted.
Right.
That, a compliant person would have both their hands in the small of their back and just be resting comfortably versus like he's still moving around.
Did you say resting comfortably?
I think he came off terribly.
Minnesota criminal defense attorney Joe Tamburino, who is not affiliated with the case, said Broad's testimony lacked empathy.
He said that the police don't have to fight fair. Actually, they do. The jury wants to see people on the stand who realize the gravity of the situation, regardless of whether they find that the use of force was reasonable or unreasonable.
Trying to show that Floyd was susceptible to stress and drugs, the defense brought out body cam video of a 2019 traffic stop in which Floyd was arrested. The now retired police officer and a retired paramedic seen on this video testified Floyd's blood pressure was high, and he admitted to taking opioids that day.
When we were in the car for the first 8 minutes, we were talking.
The defense also called Shawanda Hill to testify. She was in the SUV with Floyd the day he died and spoke about his physical state when police arrived.
He instantly grabbed the wheel, and he was like, please, please don't kill me. Please, please don't shoot me. Don't shoot me. What did I do? Just tell me what I did, please.
In total, the defense called 6 witnesses, with the majority spending less than 30 minutes on the stand. Despite that whirlwind, jurors were seen taking lots of notes. Medical experts are up next, with still no word on whether or not Chauvin will testify. Anthony?
Jenny, thank you.
All right, and this morning trials resumed. They got the defense has their medical expert up there. But you see yesterday the use of force expert that they had said total lack of empathy. It's like resting comfortably, all these different kinds of terms. And they keep going hard on the drug thing. They're like, yeah, well, it's not Chauvin that killed him, it's drugs and some everything else. I mean, that's their defense, and they've made it clear. But, it is disturbing every time we hear it.
It's very disturbing. Oh, and it's really beyond. I mean, right there, I don't know what they were trying to get at by having his friend that was in the car with him as a part of their defense, when she's saying, like, look, he was already in fear of his life when they came out and they had their guns out on him when he had his hands up on the wheel. So it's really, I feel like their case is very, very thin. And the prosecution has done a really great job to bring about a wide variety of experts, of people that are police personnel at wide variety of positions that have spoken to how that was not really the protocol. So having one expert there saying, well, his hands would be resting comfortably behind his back in the small of his back, versus all of the people that the prosecution brought out, I don't know. Oh, it's looking real thin.
And it's almost like they wanted to play him like he was overreacting by saying, like, don't kill me. Like, they got their guns pointed at him. What else is he supposed to say?
Exactly.
Outside of, like, don't kill me.
Especially with where we are in the nation. I mean, yesterday we have some really great examples that we pointed to, but it's clear. I mean, you ask almost any Black man in America how they're going to feel getting stopped by police, the police having their guns drawn on him. You can best believe that majority of the people are going to be like, man, I'm a fear for my life in that moment. I'm going to be thinking about me losing my life in that moment. It's what we keep on seeing.
Well, and, to be honest with you, I don't really think that the defense is going for, clearly they want an acquittal, but I think that what they're trying to do is plant enough doubt in one juror to get a mistrial.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, the evidence, at least as it appears to us, it ain't even as it appears. The evidence is overwhelming, but if they can put a seed of doubt in one juror, they're looking for a mistrial. Keeping it in Minneapolis. So developments even this morning before we came on air, the officer who killed Daunte Wright charged with second-degree manslaughter. Here's another clip right here from CBS this morning. In this clip, it says that the officer might be tried, but this news just broke out that the officer is going to be charged with second-degree manslaughter.
So a tough story out of Minnesota. The district attorney handling the Daunte Wright case says we may learn today if the officer who shot him will be charged. This comes after a third night of protest in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. That's the city where Daunte Wright died. And also other demonstrations in Philadelphia, Chicago, and Dallas. Omar Villafranca is in Brooklyn Center, where police say Officer Kim Potter meant to reach for her taser before shooting and killing Daunte Wright. Omar, good morning to you.
Good morning. The National Guard is still here behind me looking over the scene after another night of protest despite a curfew. Pepper spray and, of course, flashbangs were used to disperse the crowd, and there were around 60 arrests. Yesterday, the chief of police and Officer Kim Potter both resigned, but some people say that Potter should have been fired.
And I never imagined this is what was going to happen. I just thought maybe he was being arrested.
Kate Wright, Daunte's mother, said she was on the phone with the woman who was in the car with her son moments after the shooting.
And it was on a FaceTime. And she said, she was crying and screaming, and she said that they shot him. And then she pointed the phone towards the driver's seat, and my son was laying there, unresponsive.
My Lord.
That was the last time that I seen my son.
Police say Daunte Wright had been pulled over for an expired vehicle tag. They say officers tried to arrest him when they learned of an outstanding warrant and that he resisted. Police say Officer Kim Potter, who had been training a new officer, thought she reached for her taser. But she fired a gun instead. Officer Potter was a 26-year veteran of the police force. Along with Police Chief Tim Gannon, Potter offered her resignation Tuesday, saying in a letter she believes it is in the best interest of the community, the department, and my fellow officers if I resign immediately. Brooklyn Center Mayor Mike Elliott.
You know, I'm hoping that this will help bring some calm to the community. Although, you know, I think ultimately people want justice.
Why was she allowed to resign, and why didn't you fire her instead?
We were going through our own processes to make sure that we had all of the documentation in order to be able to do that.
Dante Wright, life matters.
In a show of solidarity, Wright's family met Tuesday with the family of George Floyd, just outside the courthouse where the murder trial of former officer Derek Chauvin is being held.
We're here, and we will fight for justice for this family, just like we're fighting for our brother.
At that press conference yesterday, I also asked, since Potter resigned and was not fired, would she still get her pension and be able to get another job in law enforcement? The mayor and the acting police chief could not answer that question. The mayor also was asking the case to be reassigned to the state attorney general, but the state AG says he feels confident the Washington County DA can handle this case. Gail?
It's a very good question you asked, Omar, because a lot of people are wondering, will she now be able to get another job? And that's a problem for many. Thank you very much.
Trey Holiday.
Yeah, it is a problem for many. And this is why I love how Washington State right now, what we just heard about in the police package last week, is really that we have to be able to have these guys' past, their history, the way that they play out in these cases, to follow them. And they shouldn't be able to go from one county to another and get a job when they have literally abused their power, when they have killed someone, and whether it seems like an accident or not. I'm glad to know that at the end of the day, that the ruling has come out that she will be charged with murder and ultimately, you know, or manslaughter. Ultimately, I think that this is what we need to see when we talk about real justice, and what people are out there really utilizing their collective voice to say is that the norms are no longer going to fit the situations. We need these guys to be held accountable for their actions at the maximum level, just like we are as citizens. It can't be one side for them and a different side for regular people. It needs to be the same, and they need to be held accountable.
Yeah, and I mean, with this case right here, you know, they wanted to, like I said, move it to the state attorney general. State attorney general said the county prosecutor could handle the case. The charges have been you know, second-degree manslaughter. There might be some other charges that come out of it. And you know, there's a connection between the Floyd family and the Wright family, because I guess George Floyd's girlfriend used to be a teacher for Dante Wright.
Wow. I mean, the connections down there, that's deep.
I'll be honest with you. Dante Wright's aunt spoke at a press conference yesterday. Her words was just, man, it was so impactful. We might play. I wasn't ready to play it today. You know what I'm saying? But probably tomorrow. But just saying that, like, man, this guy was loved. You know, and she was like, let me dispel the myths that Dante's from a broken home. His parents been married 23 years. He's 20 years old. That's the father, Aubrey Wright, his sister. And it said that, like, he's just too jammed up to speak to the press.
I bet. I mean, right now that's tough. And you can see his mom, you know, expelling all of her emotion right there. This is fresh. It just happened. So rightfully so, man.
Right. And we've got here. Actually, we'll bring it local. This was actually for another section of the show, but since we're on the topic of policing here, you know, breaking news first broke by Carolyn Bick at the South Seattle Emerald, as usual. Carolyn's always on the job, but we have a clip right here from King 5. Dow Constantine, King County executive, who was here the other day, is requesting that Sheriff Jeanette, man, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. I'll get him here in a second. Resign or retire. We'll play the clip now.
Good evening. King County Executive Dow Constantine is joining the chorus of elected officials calling for King County Sheriff Mitzi Joheknik to resign or retire. In a letter obtained by King 5, he wrote about his dissatisfaction over the way she characterized the financial settlement in the controversial Tommy Lay case, saying he urged her to consider retiring immediately, while also indicating it is highly unlikely she will be appointed to serve another term. Under the terms of the charter amendment, he wrote, that will make the sheriff an appointed position. We are in the process of hearing from the public and defining what the region wants in its next sheriff, and this work will accelerate no matter how Sheriff Johanknick decides to proceed. King County agreed to pay Lay's family $5 million to settle a civil rights lawsuit for the 2017 shooting, but Johanknick told staff in an email shortly after it was, quote, not a reflection of how I view the actions of the deputy Cesar Molina. Here's what Lay's attorney told King 5 today. Do you think she should resign?
Yes. She represents a whole bankrupt way of thinking, which is that blue line that exists between the public and the police. May not be blue because they're sheriffs, but the idea is the same. And she is more interested in protecting her deputy sheriffs than the public. And she should resign. She's not fit to do that job. That's what I think. That's also what the family thinks.
Both King County Council members Gurmai Zahalai and Joe McDermott have called on the sheriff to resign. Johanknick said through a spokesperson she will not resign or retire early.
All right, so Sheriff Johanknick, and her office has been under fire now for like the last few years, to be honest with you. And this Tommy Lay case has really brought it up front and center. And the email that she sent, again, first broken by Carolyn Bick at the South Seattle Emerald. The email that she sent, as they said there in the report, was counter to the narrative that the county had put out when they settled the case.
Yeah, I mean, this right here is it's a travesty, to be honest. And the way that she's handled not just this case, but as you said, other cases, really, when you pull up the history, it's unfortunate. And I think it's beyond unfortunate when we hear that through a spokesperson, she's saying she's not going to resign. At the end of the day, you have a real opportunity here to say, all right, maybe, my views on this, my perspective and position on this is not really going to mesh well with the public. Let me do what's best for the public in terms of really being able to address and be accountable for my words, what I put out there, instead of just being able to take responsibility for it. It seems like she's dipping and dodging,
Right. Well, I mean, anybody in that position is, you have to have the trust of the public. That's the number one thing is the public needs to trust you. And some of the emails that leaked out around Tommy Lay, even how they approached the Tommy Lay case, they said that Tommy Lay had a knife. Then there was no knife. Then they said he had a pen. There's possibly no pen. Then they said that he charged towards them and they shot him. Then it turns out that he was shot in the back. Then there was destruction of evidence. On and on and on. And one of the things that she said in that email is that she praised the deputies for their investigation. But in that investigation, they destroyed evidence, which has been proven. And so it's like the call to resign without that email leaking out. But now the call to resign with her, I mean, she itemized really these issues for the public. It was those are her words right now that are working against her over there in the King County Sheriff's Office.
Absolutely. And the lawyers is so correct. I mean, here it is clear as night and day that what you're really doing is you're looking to protect your officers in the sheriff's department, the people that are underneath you. You're praising them for what they've done, even though what they've done is reprehensible when you talk about destruction of evidence. Even the fact that they were like, nah, we're going to do this case in person. We want the grandma, the elderly grandmother to come down to the courthouse during COVID. I mean, at the end of the day, they really have shown that they have no real regard for the citizens, and they didn't have any regard for the family. And that's another issue. I mean, I'm sorry, man. It is really time for her to resign, period.
The OOIR report, there was an independent investigator who investigated the Tommy Lay shooting, found so many inconsistencies and everything else. And almost everything that the sheriff's department was saying in their investigation, OOIR report was like, nah, this is crap. You know what I'm saying? Like 100%. And I mean, I think that's why you see that the county had to end up settling. And we've been saying this now for months and months. The Tommy Lay case is just like peeling an onion, man. It just kept having more and more and more layers. And the fact that Tommy Lay, that the deputy first said Tommy Lay had a knife, and then there was no knife. The same deputy said that Tommy Lay had charged towards him, but it turns out Lay was shot in the back or could possibly have been on the ground.
Yeah.
And then she's praising the deputy. I mean, you know, she can't be surprised. People are asking for a resignation or a retirement. And then again, like I said, that what the charter amendment that was mentioned there in the last election, the sheriff in King County is now being changed from an elected position to an appointed position. And I think Executive Constantine was basically saying, like, look, man, no one's going to reappoint you.
Right. Right. And you got to actually be able to see all of this stuff that's written in between the lines here. I mean, clearly, not only is it that it's how you dealt with one case, but then you showcase it in your own words in an email. You're sitting here praising an investigation that has way too many holes in it. We've been saying it, peeling back the onion. Ultimately, I think that it's time for her to listen to this larger collective voice. Not only several of our council members on the King County Council level, but now Dow Constantine, the executive of the King County, saying, "Look, you need to go ahead and resign." And to not be listening to any of that, to not be actually saying, "Let me take responsibility for what I put in that email. Let me take responsibility for the fact that there was a lot of holes in this case, that we just did this improperly," is a whole nother thing.
Well,
you got to own up to it,
people,
man.
this is a big problem though, like around law enforcement, things like that. You know, the city of Seattle, the Seattle Police Department has never given an apology for tear gassing a neighborhood, right? Like they'll tell you like, oh, we deployed tear gas on protesters. No, you deployed tear gas in a residential neighborhood that had protesters. And so even if it's not the protesters, they've never even apologized to the residents, the neighborhood. It's a formal apology. Johetnik could have came out right away and been like, you know what? I think my words were insensitive. I think I was looking at it like this and that. You know, I apologize to the citizens of King County and everything else. But, you know, I stand in a position of like they're beyond an apology.
Yeah.
And something so simple go a long way. You know, I mean, people are still waiting. You got to remember up on Capitol Hill, yes, there was the peaceful protesters who were there. Then right there was people. It's a residential neighborhood. You had people in their apartment just chilling, watching TV, hanging with their kids. They get tear gas. No apology. You had people in their businesses down the street. No apology. You had people just walking up and down Broadway. Tear gas. No apology to anybody for the deployment of tear gas in a residential neighborhood night after night after night.
Yeah, this is.
And yeah, when people see this on TV and they see like the pink umbrella video and everything else, and it's like, oh, we see the police, there's the protesters. Man, there was so much smoke, tear gas that was put in the air. There's never been an apology. You know, it's such a simple thing. My mama always says, please and thank you. It costs you nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, man, apology. What's the cost as opposed to the benefit?
Well, this is why we talk about that bravado, right? It's like you've made a stance. You're sticking your feet deeper and deeper into that concrete by saying this is what it is, and unfortunately, you're not even trying to be relational or build trust among the people. This is clear. We see it time and time again. And this is another example of that. The fact that there is no apology given. There isn't any real recognition. As I was saying before, it's like, hey, you don't even want to take responsibility by saying by doing the apology. You feel like that's some type of discredit to you or your character. No, that actually people respect that. People do respect it.
King County paid the Lay family $5 million in a settlement, and even they didn't put an apology in the settlement.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're gonna take a break right here, and I found a clip that, you know, it's a lot of people that are in the streets, that have been in the streets, you know, protesting, making their voice heard, and everything else. And we're gonna go on a break right here with a snippet from a speech of Dr. Martin Luther King. Said that, you know, riots, protests, a lot of times it's the voice of the unheard.
I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society, which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. And so in a real sense, our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. And as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these recurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the morning update show. So we got some local headlines here, Trey. And this first one, this is in the Emerald, but it's been a few other places. It talks about Amazon, and Amazon is eyeing the space down there in the Rainier Valley. There we go. It says Amazon eyes Rainier Valley Lowe's for new distribution center in South Seattle Emerald. Yeah, and so what they're talking about is the Lowe's. Old school Seattle people know that used to be Six Stadium. Yeah. That's where our very first major league team was. Major League Baseball team was. It's 13-acre site right there where the Lowe's is at, and then there's the Pepsi bottling plant that's over there as well. And what we're hearing, I talked to Doug Trum over at the Urbanist, and we'll be talking to him on air here soon. But basically, they're talking about putting a huge distribution center there, and that's right, kind of where Rainier and Martin Luther King intersect, right across the street from Franklin High School, and it was upzoned to be able to build apartments there, to put up apartments, but 13 acres, and I mean, this is the talk. It's real early in the process. I reached out to Amazon this morning to see if we can they can provide somebody that we can discuss this with further.
Yeah, well, this is really interesting because so many people in the community have reached out about this. As soon as it was heard, there was so many comments saying, no, absolutely not. We don't want you in this neighborhood. You don't belong in this neighborhood. There's a real resistance, another collective kind of people voice rising to the surface here. To make it really clear to Amazon that no, this is not really what many, many people in the public want. And it just goes back to a larger issue that we're experiencing in Seattle. When we see the rise of the tech industry, when we see the exclusion of the tech industry really bringing on, a lot of local hires and creating pathways for youth, Black youth and Indigenous youth to be a part of their executive team, to actually grow into positions there, to really connect with the schools here, to provide those brilliant pathways that say, this is what we're looking for. Let's help train you in the things that we want you to do when you become a young adult or become an adult right after college. Maybe we can provide some type of programs that get you over the hump. But that's not really what happened. And we see an exclusionary practice that also spread gentrification so rapidly throughout Seattle that many families that end up being displaced were families that were Black, that were Indigenous, that were of other ethnicities, non-white families that could not really participate in this tech boom. And I think it's really clear because we see that what they ended up doing was bringing in talent from a global kind of perspective, right? Not to say they don't have amazing talent at Amazon or some of these other tech companies, but that it wasn't really this like, let's dig in locally and find that talent. A lot of it was spread out throughout the world and bringing people here. But man, people are rising up. Oh, they do not want this to happen. They don't want Amazon in that space, man.
You know, there's a deep, we're going to have another show. You just brought up something interesting, right? But you know, years ago there was a lot of changes to different visa laws as well, which allowed companies to say that they were hiring people of color.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Allow them not to hire Black people.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? So like, no, we've got lots of people of color here, you know. And I was a migrant worker my whole life. I worked across Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and everything else. Definitely nothing against that. But all I'm saying is, it's like, man, it's a lot of different little techniques that have been used. But going back to this space right here. So in talking to Doug Trump over at the Urbanist, what he was saying is that 13 acres, the cost of that, the actual sale price probably massive, you know what I'm saying? And that the owner very well might be like, well, there's not one person or one group that might be able to buy this whole property. And so maybe they pitched it to Amazon. There's other, you know, details that need to come out. The flip side of it is, as well, is that, you know, people might talk about, oh, well, you know, it's more jobs and X, Y, and Z. Most likely, the majority of the people that would work in that place would be contractors who are delivering, right? And then they were talking about the main access road being on Rainier. Rainier is the same street. They want to put a rapid ride down as well. So, you know, it'll be interesting to actually talk to the people at Amazon and get their understanding on this. And I mean, it clearly for a lot of people that live in the neighborhood, especially right now, they appear tone deaf. You know, that's a real sensitive neighborhood in Seattle. That's actually where the Central District, the South End, and I guess you could say Lower Beacon Hill all come together right there on that intersection. And, you know, I mean, for us, it's a residential neighborhood. I mean, it's a busy arterial right there, McClellan, Martin Luther King, and Rainier. And so, you know, it's still early in the process, and I definitely want to talk to Amazon and get their rationale of why they would want to put that there.
Well, yeah, I also think it's important too. Like, you know, there was issues already with the Amazon Fresh store, right? And we kind of talked about that a little bit happening right here on 23rd and Jackson. And people were like, man, you know, we tried to talk to Amazon originally. Like, were you guys thinking of doing something there? How are you guys going to really build relationship with the community? And how are you guys going to begin to build that trust? And I think that that's still a question that is out there, in terms of how is Amazon going to be really intentional to build that trust? Or is it that, oh, well, you have the money, you know, again, like you said, let's keep being tone deaf. I think there's a lot of ways to kind of explore how relationship can be built. And really it hasn't happened quite yet for many people that are, you know, native of Seattle that, you know, we're looking for Amazon to do a little bit more. It hasn't happened yet. So they have some opportunity there.
Yeah, so looking to hear back from. I mean, they said they'll get back to me today as far as hooking up someone from Amazon that we can get more information. What I want to do is I want to put everybody at the table. I want to put Amazon at the table. I want to put Doug from the Urbanist at the table. I want to put other community groups at the table. You know, I mean, there's parents over there at Franklin High School. You can imagine the increase in traffic on the streets, lots of kids over there walking to school. Rainier Avenue is notorious. It's one of the worst streets in Seattle as far as accidents, people getting hit, and some of everything else. So real early in the process here with Amazon and this distribution center. And, I mean, these places, somehow they don't pop up in some of these other neighborhoods.
Yeah, I gotta say too, shout out to Vanishing Seattle, man. My folks over there at Vanishing Seattle, one of the first people to call this out just text me, hey, this is going on, man. A lot of people are already commenting. So we saw a lot of energy around this, man. So shout out to those guys always having their ear to the ground for these kinds of developments in the very beginning.
Right. You can read more about this, and Nikki can put that link in the comments as well if she hasn't already. The article there on the South Seattle Emerald. So we'll move over to our next headline. This actually comes to us from the Capitol Hill Seattle blog and Justin Carter. It looks like PCC employees, there's a picket planned outside of Central District PCC to bring attention to labor tussle over co-ops board elections. And I'll be honest with you, it's almost like PCC these days. They can't stay out of their own way right now, at least in the court of public opinion. The last time we talked about PCC was when they objected against the hazard pay. And there was a big backlash with PCC objecting against hazard pay. This right here is PCC's having their board elections. And man, what the union representatives are saying is that PCC is basically trying to manipulate the elections. They had an app that had glitches in it. They said that the materials, the voter materials, was very one-sided. They said that at PCC locations, PCC actually called the police on employees that were out there trying to get signatures because they needed enough signatures to put these 2 employees on the board. Basically, they want 2 employees to go on the board at PCC. And man, according to the UFCW, PCC is fighting this tooth and nail.
Yeah, let's just go back a step here, because the truth of the matter is this. PCC has always been able to appoint their friends, people that were connected in their network to other board members to their board. It's just historically how they've built their board. Now, when you look at their board and the history of it, there hasn't been much diversity. When they brought themselves into the Central District location, there was a wide variety of groups who were really anticipating for them to blend in with the community, understand the historic nature of the Central District in particular, and also their Columbia City location, but to understand the history there and to be really proactive in terms of, let me build relationship with community members. Let me as a company, let us as a company come in and really showcase that we want to be, born and bred of this community. We do not want to just be here basically serving the transplants, right? So UFCW workers said, look, one of the ways you can do this is by appointing 2 positions on your board that will always be there for workers, because you guys need to be hearing, again, as I've been saying, it's like bringing somebody from the production floor up into the executive level suite so that you can hear the concerns and what they're dealing with on the ground, so that you can actually plan for them, so that you can build relationship and build new initiatives and pathways around how to navigate some of the things that they're experiencing on the ground floor. Not only that, but we, as in King County Equity Now and Africatown and other groups, said, look, you also probably really need to have a community member spot on that board as well. And so this has been something that has been constant and months of negotiating, trying to figure it out. And what they decided to do was they told UFCW workers, you have to be getting signatures in person during COVID in front of these stores from 2,000 members. This is something that none of those other appointed board members have to go through at all. And UFCW was like, wait a minute, it's COVID. Is it possible for us to try to do a digital campaign? They said, absolutely not. You got to get these signatures in person during COVID, during this pandemic. You have to be out there in the streets. And then that layer of them calling the police on workers who were trying to do this action is also there. So this is multi-layered here, and it's unfortunate because they have not been listening to this collective voice. They have not been positioning themselves in a way to say, you know what, we hear you guys out. We understand what the community is wanting. It's not going to harm us to make sure that we have a wide range of diverse voices and perspectives on our board to help govern something that has community in our name. This is something that is a real travesty. I'm going to be there today, because I'm going to tell you like this. At the end of the day, I stand in solidarity with these workers. And it's something that I think is, again, it's unfortunate when you see that companies are being very direct to not build intentional relationships. And one thing I just have to say here is that instead of listening to the voices of the people, what they said was, let's show you how we've been in community. We're going to create our own PCC TV spots that show you how we've been doing it. Look at Marjorie's plantain chips. They're in our stores because we worked with Marjorie. We worked with Donna Moody to get these plantain chips here. We did it with our production house to get it all packaged up nicely. At the end of the day, those kinds of examples are only one of the meal. You guys got to really be more intentional and dig deeper, and also be accountable for the ways that you guys have been building that is really outside of a community perspective. Sorry, lots to say on this one.
Look at you wearing your fatigues today, and now you're going down. You're going to 23rd and Union. You be out in front of the PCC. I mean, there's. I think people realize that in across America that there are very big corporations that have done well in just understanding the public, and we're just seeing here that in Seattle, a lot of times, here's what happens. Yeah, can I keep it real?
Oh yeah,
I got
keep it all the way real.
2-3 minutes here, so I can keep it real. Let me be honest with you, right? With the general public, here's what happens at most. At least these companies that people are upset at here with their actions. Here's what's happening. It's one of two things. One, it's a bunch of people in the boardroom and their PR company and their communications firm who feel that they have a grasp on, what's going on in not only just our community, but other communities or everything else, right? So they're like, yeah, don't worry. Watch BET. I was on World Star. We know what to do. Or in a lot of cases, we've seen this, that they've actually hired the black guy. You know what I'm saying? And the black guy or the black woman, the black person is supposed to be their link to the street. Oh, no, we've got Tyrone. He tells us what's going on out there on Union and this and that. And a lot of times that person is out of touch and they ain't really got no connection. And so but then on the corporate level, they're like, no, we've engaged Tyrone. He does this, and that. It gives them a little bit of, a little bit of a buffer, right? And then it turns out the people that they're working with really aren't connected in any way to community. And being connected to community, let's be clear. I don't mean you need to live in the CD. You need to have, a life journey that's similar and anything. Connected to community can just be that you have some empathy. You can understand. And I say that as somebody who's all around the world. The number one thing that people tell you is like, man, if you can't have a sense of empathy, it's very difficult to go into a new country, new cultures and everything else and build relationships, meaningful business relationships that'll last because you don't have an understanding of what the average Joe is really going through, And so you don't have to necessarily be from the CD or from the hood or from anything. I mean, it just starts with a sense of basic empathy. How can I build relationships within community and understand what community needs are, understand the pressure points, understand what makes people happy, what makes people sad. And the crazy thing is these companies have billions of dollars, but, there's no investment. And we've seen this, trying to stay on clock. I've already gone over, but I'm just saying, like, I'll be real with you, that like Converge, we're here right now. And I'm glad everybody's here watching it. But man, we weren't the first. Black media and marketing and communication and PR firms died on the vine in Seattle because none of these companies were willing to spend no money. Real deal.
Yeah.
I mean, look right now. That's why I still call it Safeco. T-Mobile got a store at all these hoods in Seattle. T-Mobile, man, for years, people would be hitting them up. Guys that had magazines and everything else, website, couldn't get no ads. Even right now, our black media and communications and PR firms have died on the vine because none of these advertisers or companies or anything doing it, unless it's Martin Luther King Day, you know what I'm saying? So they give you a gimme ad. So, we'll spend some money. We'll give you a gimme ad, everything else. This is just a broader extension, that these businesses come into the community and prosper. But man, when it comes to advertising, when it comes to actually leaving dollars there with companies and businesses, they fail to do so. They fail to do so. Yeah. 100%. And I mean, it's a further extension. They're in the boardroom or the ad agency that they work with. Ad agencies like, oh yeah, don't worry, we've got our Negro spend dollars that never seem to make it out. Yeah. I mean, there's a structural problem with a lot of corporations here in Seattle. And there's a lot of amazing ones too. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to put everybody in that same bag. There's some people and groups that are very intentional, but a lot of them aren't. And they're just intentionally not intentional. Yeah. And we've seen it.
This is, for me, this is why I'm always talking about when you come with a genuine heart, like being your authentic self. Yes, you got to be able to recognize, no, I don't come from this community. I understand that, we took a opportunity to build a store in this community, to build a firm in this community, to utilize Seattle for its greatness. And now we have another outlet for our business. But ultimately, being genuine is so key. I think even when we saw the new president come in to PCC, and immediately the first action we see from Susie is, let's go against the hazard pay. It's like immediately everybody was thinking, whoa, wait a minute. Like, do you even care about these workers at all? Do you even care about the fact that you have people that are essential workers that are on the front line? I mean, it was tough to understand you guys are going to do anything that's really community centric when you come out against hazard pay out the gate. It was like there was so many opportunities to say, no, let me be intentional. Let me take this to another level as a leader in this company. But no, that's not what happened. So PCC is one example. We were just talking about Amazon. It's something that unfortunately many people that are localized Seattleites have had to deal with time and time again. Oh, people are not coming through with the empathy or being genuine.
And just know, this isn't just a Seattle issue.
Really?
I mean, I speak on the media side of it, man, that it's been a fight for Black media all over America to ever get any real money out of corporate America, even though Black people, as far as especially consumer goods, do you know how much money we spend on consumer goods? But man, we can't get no advertisement. We can't get no real outreach engagement. It's 2 times a year, maybe Martin Luther King Day and then Black History Month. But there's real no ads. We don't see the ads when a cell phone store is doing a special, or it's this or it's that or whatever. We're excluded. Like I said, T-Mobile is in every hood, been there for years. You know what I'm saying? What kind of engagement are they really doing on the street level? And then the other thing is they go to the PR firm with this great idea. Let's call it inclusion or something and yada, yada. And it don't trickle down. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And we see this just like in corporate communications and some of everything else, man. These guys is up there eating, by the way. These PR executives, these communication firms, marketing firms, they're eating big. And the gap between that boardroom and the streets is enormous. And that's why these companies just keep tripping all over themselves. I'm like, man, we're sitting here in this time of social justice and change, man, where we've really seen police killings, and you're calling the police on your employees for sitting out there getting signatures. You're calling the police. I mean, I'm wondering, does PCC realize, how does that translate? You know what I'm saying? How does that translate to the average person who's like, nah, I'm good. Maybe, man, they call the police for you getting a signature. What else they gonna call the police on?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's a disconnect.
It's a real disconnect.
But, we left our audience affected yesterday. And we always try not to leave our audience affected. And I mean, we were all affected. Yeah. And so we got to make good for you here on the other side of the break. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Something else that we're really proud of this Friday, 7 p.m., episode number 2 of Mocha Culture, produced by our very own producer extraordinaire, Nikki Barron, and hosted by Shayna Shepherd. Lots of good music. You know, the very first Mocha Culture 1 week ago was a bunch of songs by Ray Charles. And this Friday, 7 o'clock, they're playing tribute to Aretha Franklin.
Yeah, tough lady to cover, man. I mean, clearly, but I'm loving that, you know, again, there's a real spotlight on what we talk about. It's been such a foundation of our culture. We know music and creativity, culture and art is all like blends together so well. So I'm so excited for this episode to come out on Friday.
All right. So promised everybody we wouldn't leave you in this affected state. And this is something we played before. It was right around Valentine's Day. And Spoken Word by Tia Yarbrough, who's like super famous now because of all of her spoken word from Seattle. And this one was entitled, or is entitled, Black Love.
Black love, 50-50 has never been a real thing. See, black love requires you to be unconditionally committed. So if accurate math is a requirement for your sacrifice, you have already chosen wrong. Sometimes I'm the lyrics and the instruments only asking him to sing along. Sometimes he is the verse. We just simply want to be a song sung. Be the moon and the sun and a sky that it always has room, existing always unconsumed. We won't fight about who gave more because we know that math is unnecessary to graph. Black love is unequivocally the most powerful, but also the most opposed. It grows through the toughest of concrete cracks. It's a healer of all things black. It soothes. Like the gospel, it's the good news. It saves and survives again and again. It evolves like creation learned land after it originally learned to swim, a reinvention through time. My favorite color has always been and always will be black. And if I can love in that shade unafraid, I'd have it no other way. They say black is and black ain't. But if you'd allow me to paint our love's light, Kahindi wildly bright, I'm sure you'd see the masterpiece we are and have always been. Black love is where love itself begins. Our love grips the soil like the roots of old trees. Our love endures every storm and every breeze. Our knees soar because we'll refuse to fold, be it the warmth, the summer's promise, or the real of the winter's cold. Black love is soul food, warmed up the next day. Better because we chose to stay. There is something so beautiful about holding on. I am sometimes asking him to be what he's never seen. Sometimes penalized for another's failure or lies. She wants to trust, but a vessel broken sometimes can't contain or have room for more pain. So she is bursting all the time without cause. See, black love chooses, or rather decides, to love beyond our flaws. Black love beats the odds. After told, it's somehow some inferior iteration generation. We know that Black love is God's creation. You make me feel like I swallowed a jar of butterflies. My heart flutters and rain fills my eyes. I've tried to resist the overwhelm of this. I am sometimes remiss in telling you how often my heart skips. Who could predict we'd make it through the thin and thick? Sometimes square pegs and round holes fit the math. That doesn't always add up, but we've showed our work, added the truth and subtracted the hurt. There is no test we cannot pass. So when they ask us how, we'll say it's more about why.
All right. Tia Yarbrough there,
Yeah.
you know, and Tia and her husband Taco, like, you know, always really big in the scene. But Tia is shining, like literally globally now out of here of Seattle with her spoken word. You know, it just changes the energy in the studio.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love that piece. And honestly, having known Tia for many years, it's just a beautiful thing to witness. I mean, when you see people really walking and stepping into their purpose, as people always say about us here on Converge, but it's just a beautiful thing to witness. And I love that we had that piece in there today.
All right, good stuff. So tomorrow we're joined by Jasmine Scott, and Jasmine. I was talking about a few different things. What's Jasmine talking about tomorrow?
Yeah, so excited to have Jasmine on tomorrow. We're going to be really highlighting the Black Film Festival that Langston has been pulling together, and Jasmine's just so essential in getting that up off the ground. I'm excited to dive in deep with her tomorrow, and also, you know, do a little bit of history. I share that when, you know, we're going to show you guys a little something tomorrow. Yeah. She's coming with some special treats about some history of her family, and again, focusing on Black media, man.
Yeah, no, man, a real historic family that the Jasmine comes from. Any last words before we get out of here, Trey?
Man, you know what? You guys can actually join in on the action today right there in front of PCC, 3 to 5, the Central District location. I will be there. I think it's important, again, always see yourself as a part of the solution. It's another way to do so, y'all.
All right. Whew, made it through.
Yeah, did good.
I'll say this. Still we rise. Racism won't win. Man, go forward in your purpose. Go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rise.